Welcome to the Deep Dive. We help you cut through the noise so you can get right to the juicy insights. Today, we're diving into the worlds of decentralized science. DeSci for short. You've sent us a stack of articles about it, so let's figure out what's really worth paying attention to in this space.
It's a fascinating area, that's for sure. Think about it. What if groundbreaking research wasn't controlled by big institutions? That's the potential of DeSci. It uses blockchain tech like tokens and DAOs to put the power of scientific discovery into the hands of the community.
I mean, we've all heard about the revolution DeFi brought to finance. Andrew Kang from Mechanism Capital is drawing a parallel between those early DeFi days and where DeSci stands now. What do you think? Is that a fair comparison?
There are definite similarities. Back in 2019, DeFi was this wild west of experimentation. Protocols like Maker and Alav were finding their feet, constantly iterating and refining their models. DeSci feels very similar right now, with a lot of energy, but also a lot of uncertainty. Kang predicts we'll see DeSci projects evolving rapidly, just like we did with DeFi.
Kang highlighted a few intriguing DeSci projects like Bioprotocol, Pump Science, and GLP-1. They each seem to be tackling a different piece of the puzzle.
They do. Bioprotocol is particularly interesting because it allows users to co-own medicines of the future. Now, that raises a lot of questions. How does that ownership actually work? What control do users have? Is this a new form of intellectual property management? It's a bold vision, and it'll be fascinating to see how it plays out.
Pump Science caught my eye because it sounds like they're tokenizing longevity research. Are we talking about investing in the fountain of youth here?
That's the idea, at least. They're creating tokens linked to the development of longevity medicines. Essentially, you're betting on the success of these therapies. It's a high-risk, high-reward proposition.
And then there's GLP-1, which seems to be taking aim at the obesity epidemic, with its Make America Skinny Again tagline. That sounds ambitious, to say the least.
It certainly does. But what's interesting here is the approach. Are they focusing on new drug development, behavioral therapies, a combination of both? The tagline is catchy, but what's the substance behind it? That's what we need to unpack.
We'll have to dig deeper into that. And it's worth noting that Kang's firm, Mechanism Capital, is an investor in Bioprotocol. So clearly, they see potential in this space.
They're not alone. There's a growing number of investors, both within and outside the crypto world, who are recognizing the disruptive potential of DeSci. We're seeing funding pouring into projects that are aiming to revolutionize everything from drug discovery to scientific publishing.
From what we've gathered, DeSci isn't just about creating new medicines. It's also about tackling systemic issues within the scientific community itself.
Exactly. One of the biggest criticisms of traditional science is that it's slow, bureaucratic, and often driven by profit motives rather than the pursuit of knowledge. DeSci aims to address these issues by creating a more open, transparent, and community-driven approach to research.
So improving the peer review system, making research data more accessible, and reducing the influence of big institutions. Those are some of the key goals here.
Precisely. It's about empowering individual researchers, fostering collaboration, and ultimately accelerating the pace of scientific discovery. It's a bold vision, but it's one that's gaining traction.
But is it realistic? I mean, some might argue that DeSci is just a bunch of idealistic dreamers who don't understand the complexities of the scientific world.
There are definitely challenges. Navigating the regulatory landscape, ensuring data security and privacy, and preventing scams and fraud. These are all hurdles that DeSci needs to overcome.
And then there's the question of adoption. Can DeSci truly challenge the established scientific institutions and practices? Or will it remain a niche movement?
That remains to be seen. But one thing's clear. DeSci is a force to be reckoned with. It's tapping into a growing disillusionment with the status quo and offering a compelling alternative.
The pandemic seems to have been a major catalyst for DeSci's emergence.
Absolutely. The global health crisis exposed the flaws in our current research and development models, the slow pace of vaccine development, the lack of data sharing and collaboration, and the influence of pharmaceutical companies all came under intense scrutiny. DeSci emerged as a potential solution, promising a more efficient and equitable approach to scientific progress.
That makes a lot of sense. So, with the pandemic as a backdrop, let's delve into the specific benefits that DeSci claims to offer.
One of the most significant benefits is improved data accessibility. Imagine a world where researchers, healthcare professionals, and even patients have secure access to vast amounts of medical data. This could lead to faster breakthroughs, more personalized treatments, and a deeper understanding of diseases.
It's a powerful vision. But in a world where data breaches are becoming increasingly common, especially in the healthcare sector, How does DeSci ensure the security and privacy of this sensitive information?
That's where blockchain's inherent security features come in. By leveraging blockchain technology, DeSci can create a more secure and tamper-proof system for storing and managing health data.
We've seen firsthand the devastating consequences of data breaches in healthcare. The ransomware attacks on Kaiser and Welltalk, which affected millions and exposed personal data, are stark reminders of the vulnerabilities in our current systems.
Exactly. DeSci aims to address these vulnerabilities by creating a more decentralized and resilient infrastructure for healthcare data. It's about shifting control away from centralized institutions and empowering individuals to own and manage their health information.
That's a pretty radical shift from the way things work today. But is it feasible? Can DeSci truly deliver on its promise of improved data security and privacy?
It's certainly a complex challenge, but there are already DeSci projects developing innovative solutions in this space. For example, some platforms are using blockchain-based encryption and access control mechanisms to ensure that only authorized individuals can access sensitive health data.
So it's not just theoretical. There are real-world applications being built right now.
Absolutely. And as the DeSci space matures, we can expect to see even more sophisticated solutions emerge.
So DeSci promises to revolutionize scientific research and improve healthcare. But what's the current state of this movement? Is it just a bunch of idealistic projects, or is there a real market forming around DeSci?
DeSci is definitely gaining traction. In fact, the DeSci market cap currently stands at an impressive $1.2 billion. And we're seeing some key players emerge. The top three DeSci tokens by market cap are Origin Trail, Refampition, and Vita.io.
$1 billion market cap is nothing to sneeze at. That suggests there's real interest and investment in this space.
Exactly. And this is just the beginning. As more people recognize the potential of DeSci, we can expect this market to grow exponentially.
Right, so we've covered a lot of ground here. We've explored the origins of DeSci, the potential benefits, and the challenges it faces. Before we dive into the potential downsides and ethical concerns, I think it's time for a quick recap to make sure we're all on the same page.
Sounds like a good plan. Let's take a moment to synthesize what we've learned so far. So far, we've established that DeSci aims to leverage blockchain technology to address some of the long-standing issues in scientific research, like slow progress, lack of transparency, and limited access to data.
We've also touched on the potential for DeSci to empower individuals and communities, potentially disrupting the traditional power structures in the scientific world. But let's flip the script for a moment. What about the potential downsides? Are there risks we need to consider?
Absolutely. One of the biggest concerns is that DeSci, despite its good intentions, could inadvertently exacerbate existing inequalities in the scientific community.
Oh, so?
Well, DeSci relies heavily on technology and access to resources. If we're not careful, it could create a situation where those with more resources, funding technical expertise and connections, benefit disproportionately, leaving behind researchers and communities that are already marginalized.
So it's like a digital divide, but for science.
Exactly. We need to be mindful of this potential pitfall and actively work to ensure that DeSci is inclusive and accessible to everyone, regardless of their background or location.
That makes sense. What about the regulatory landscape? We touched on this briefly before, but how do you see DeSci navigating the complex web of rules and regulations that govern scientific research, especially in areas like healthcare?
It's a significant challenge. Traditional regulatory bodies are often slow to adapt to new technologies and models. Blockchain, with its decentralized nature, poses a unique set of challenges for regulators who are accustomed to centralized control.
So how do we reconcile the need for innovation with the need for oversight and protection?
It requires open dialogue and collaboration between DeSci proponents, regulators, and policymakers. DeSci projects need to demonstrate a commitment to transparency, ethical practices, and adherence to safety standards. At the same time, regulators need to be willing to engage with this emerging field and develop frameworks that foster innovation while safeguarding the public interest.
It sounds like striking that balance is going to be crucial for DeSci's long-term success. What about the risk of scams and fraudulent activities? We've seen this play out in other areas of the crypto world. How can DeSci protect itself from bad actors?
It's a valid concern. Whenever you have money and innovation, you're going to attract opportunists. DeSci platforms need to prioritize robust security measures, implement strict KYC and AML protocols, and educate users about the risks.
Community vigilance is probably going to play a key role as well, right? Similar to how the DeFi community has been pretty good at identifying and calling out potential scams.
Absolutely. The DeSci community needs to be proactive in identifying and reporting suspicious projects. Transparency and accountability are paramount.
You mentioned user education. That brings up another potential challenge, the technical complexity of DeSci. For the average person, the world of blockchain tokens and DAOs can be pretty daunting. How can DeSci become more accessible and user-friendly?
It's a hurdle that needs to be addressed. DeSci platforms need to prioritize intuitive design, clear communication, and user-friendly interfaces. Think about the early days of the internet. It was a confusing and intimidating space for most people. But as technology evolved and user interfaces improved, the internet became accessible to the masses. DeSci needs to follow a similar path.
So it's about making the technology disappear into the background and focusing on the user experience.
Exactly. We need to make it easy for people to participate in DeSci, regardless of their technical expertise.
Now let's zoom out a bit and consider the broader implications of DeSci. Some experts believe it has the potential to completely upend the traditional scientific establishment, potentially displacing universities and research institutions as the primary drivers of scientific progress. What are your thoughts on that?
It's a bold prediction, and I think it's too early to say whether DeSci will completely replace traditional institutions. What's more likely, at least in the near term, is a period of coexistence, and perhaps even collaboration.
So DeSci could complement rather than compete with
eh,
existing models.
Potentially. Universities and research institutions have a wealth of knowledge, expertise, and infrastructure that DeSci can tap into. Conversely, DeSci can bring new funding models, innovative tools, and a more collaborative approach to the table.
It'll be interesting to see how this dynamic plays out. Another question that comes to mind is the impact on traditional scientific funding models. Could DeSci lead to a more diverse and decentralized funding landscape, potentially reducing the reliance on government grants and corporate sponsorships?
That's certainly a possibility. DeSci offers alternative funding mechanisms like crowdfunding and tokenized incentives that could empower researchers to pursue projects that might not have received traditional funding.
We've talked a lot about the potential benefits and challenges, but what about the ethical considerations? Are there concerns about the potential misuse of DeSci, perhaps in areas like genetic engineering or artificial intelligence?
Of course. Like any powerful technology, DIS can be used for both good and bad purposes. It's crucial to have open and ongoing discussions about the Tessafira, ethical implications of DeSci, and to develop guidelines and safeguards to ensure responsible development and use.
So ethical considerations need to be baked into the DNA of DeSci from the very beginning.
Precisely. We need to be proactive, not reactive. It's about anticipating potential risks and mitigating them before they become problems.
All right, we've covered a lot of ground in this discussion about the potential downsides and ethical considerations of DeSci. It seems clear that DeSci is not a silver bullet, and there are real risks and challenges that need to be addressed. But before we delve into the future of DeSci, let's take a moment to recap what we've discussed so far.
That sounds like a good idea. Let's synthesize the key points we've explored. So we've talked about DeSci's potential to change research, discussed the challenges, and even touched on the downsides and ethical stuff. Now, let's look ahead. What's next for DeSci?
That's where things get exciting. DeSci is still early days, but it's moving fast. One promising trend is DeSci merging with other cool technologies like AI and machine learning.
Yeah, like DeSci on steroids.
Exactly. By combining DeSci's way of doing things with the power of AI and machine learning, we could unlock totally new levels of scientific discovery and innovation. Imagine AI algorithms analyzing huge data sets of medical research to find potential new drugs or predict disease outbreaks. That's the kind of game-changing power we're talking about.
That's the kind of power that could change everything.
Are there any real-world examples of this happening?
Oh, yeah. We're already seeing AI platforms being used to speed up drug discovery and development. These platforms can analyze tons of data to identify promising drug candidates and even predict how well they'll work. This can cut down the time and cost of making new treatments.
So, science fiction is becoming reality. What other developments should we keep an eye on in the DeSci space?
Another exciting area is building decentralized marketplaces for scientific data and intellectual property. Imagine a world where researchers can easily share their data, work together on projects, and even make money from their discoveries directly, without needing middlemen. This could make science more open and collaborative, speeding up innovation.
So DeSci is not just about changing how research is done. It's about changing how scientific knowledge is shared and valued.
Exactly. It's about creating a system where everyone can contribute to and benefit from science.
We've covered a lot in this deep dive into decentralized science. We've talked about the benefits, the challenges, the ethical concerns, and the future trends. But before we finish up, I want to leave our listeners with something to think about.
Go for it.
Given everything we've discussed, what role do you see DeSci playing in the future of science? What impact will it have on our lives?
That's a great question. DeSci has the potential to change the way we do research, develop treatments, and share knowledge, leading to a healthier and more equitable world. But we need to make sure this technology is used responsibly. It's a journey full of possibilities and challenges, and I'm excited to see where it leads.
Well said.